Welcome to Wednesday Live, everyone. Great to be with you this afternoon. I have a very special guest and dear friend, Laura Vaughan from Carry the Three. Welcome, Laura.
Hi, Shannon. It's great to see you.
Great to see you too. I was so looking forward to this.
Me too. Me too.
You're always a source of energy for me. So our topic today is something that I think everyone can benefit from, and it's called the abundant manager. Before we get into the nitty-gritties, can you give us a little bit of your background and context for your passion for this topic?
Yeah, sure. So I started out I actually became an accountant. My educational background is in accounting, although before that I thought I was going to be a music teacher. So I got a music degree, and then, made the very logical transition into accounting. So in my years, right, I think more and more I realized very many of us have these meandering career paths, and it's not as linear as we sometimes expect it to be when we leave school. So over the years, then used my accounting skills and discovered people were much more fascinating to me than numbers. Still believe in the value of numbers. The problem is numbers they don't change anything. Understanding them doesn't change anything by itself. We actually need people to make the change happen. So moved sort of out of focused accounting, narrow accounting, into more general management. Ran a business with my dad and my husband for about 7 years, and then made the move back into general management. That happened right around the 2008 economic crisis. So that business actually didn't make it through, which is a very, very stressful time. And that's where I gained all my leadership strength. There's nothing like leading through a crisis to get the best degree ever.
So true. Yeah, you earned your knowledge.
Right? Not the way I would have necessarily chosen, but good always comes out of these difficult situations. So then over the last few years have really discovered that I have a lot of generalist skill set, and I have a heart for the challenge of managers. I think the managers in our corporate world have a really uniquely tough job to do. And there's not a lot of support for them in their roles. There's a lot of information out there. There are a lot of books. There's a lot of stuff they can go and self-serve.
Yeah.
But there's just not a lot of support for people who are wrestling with that role. And there's so many good people who are so buried and overwhelmed and confused about how to get better. And I have a heart for that. So that's where that's how I landed where I am today.
That's awesome. And I can't wait to learn more about that. And thank you, Nani, for inviting everybody to ask questions. Type your questions in the chat and we will respond to them. So our topic today is the abundant workplace. What do you mean by
that? That terminology actually came out of the opposite phrase, which was workplace, this concept of workplace poverty. Mm-hmm. Poverty is a big word, and sometimes when I use it in that context, it creates a little bit of a tension inside people that is maybe going a little further than I necessarily intend. The concept of poverty in this context is really just this feeling of lack. Mm-hmm. There are so many workplaces and so many people, not just managers, but employees, people doing a day-to-day regular job who are just lacking at work. It doesn't have meaning. They don't feel like they're growing. They don't feel like they're part of something bigger. And there's just this underlying, is this all there is? Is this, and it doesn't have to be that way. And it hurts me that it is that way for so many people. So the concept of workplace abundance was birthed from the concept of workplace poverty, and how do we turn poverty into abundance for our entire workplaces? A feeling of I'm growing here and I'm contributing to something that matters. That's workplace abundance.
That's so true, Laura. And what an awesome need you have identified. And you're particularly passionate about the manager level in organizations and why they are so pivotal in making an abundant workplace or one that experiences poverty. Tell us more about your how you identified that, or how you see them as such integral members of the team.
Right. So, like a lot of people, I think I learned my first lesson when I had a very, very, very bad boss. And at the time, I didn't necessarily convert that lesson into, oh, I need to help managers. But at the time, it was really, really painful. I mean, I literally called my mom one day and said, am I a horrible person? And I just don't know it. Like I'm shouting at my family. I almost hit my dog.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Mom, you got to be honest. This is a big secret everybody knows but me. And first of all, if you want an honest answer to that question, don't ask your mom.
Don't ask that one.
Yeah, ask somebody else. Don't ask your mom. But she said to me, I think you need to quit. I think you need to quit your job because it is wearing away on your sense of who you are and what you have to offer the world, how you're trying to show up in the world. And so I think it was that bad experience that made me realize how big my impact could be as a manager. Was the day I decided I never want to be the reason somebody else goes home and shouts at their family or kicks their dog, not on my watch.
Yeah.
And so I think that was the moment that I realized how big the impact is. Yes. The thing is, we often look to our senior leaders, our CEOs, to bring the vision and bring the culture and make things, make a workplace that matters for people. And that's great. If it doesn't actually pass through the manager level to all the employees on a daily basis, it's not going anywhere. It's our managers that are the conduit for carrying that meaning to the rest of the workplace.
That's such a great point too, because I think that they're culture carriers is what I'm hearing you say, and how there's so much expectation of them to deliver and produce results, and that so often people join organizations but they leave managers. We've seen that in headlines of case studies and articles for decades, is that people, are attracted to the company, but they leave the manager, much like you experienced. And in that case, I was even like wearing on your own self-image or your own self-conscience is saying like, am I a bad person? Like why am, so it's deeply affecting people on a very human level, not just a productivity level. And then what you're saying is like, the CEO is the person who everybody looks to say, where are we going? What's the direction? What is our mission? But you're saying without the managers to buy in and to lead that charge, it's not going to happen.
It doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Unless, I suppose if we're talking about a very small business where the CEO is the one interacting day to day with every employee in the company, that's a little bit of a different model. Mm-hmm. But once, somewhere around the $5 million level, is my experience. Somewhere between 5 and 10, those CEOs are putting in place a management team. Mm-hmm. And then they become reliant on these other people to carry some of that day-to-day interaction. Mm-hmm. You can't scale unless you do. And if those people aren't competent and confident in what their role is, it's really, really hard to be good leaders. So we all want great leaders in our managers, and the world is full of advice and information on the difference between managers and leaders. I actually think great managers are leaders. Leadership is a skill that great managers possess. It's not an either or.
Well said. It's not about your title, your level, where you sit on an org chart. You're saying it's a skill that people, regardless of your level or your role.
You don't even have to, it doesn't even matter. My focus is managers, but gosh, I see leadership everywhere in businesses. It has nothing to do. It's a skill. And I do believe it's a skill that we all can learn to some degree.
Agreed.
Talent.
Yeah, I see it too very often with executive assistants.
Yes.
That is leadership. Like they, if they buy into something and know that it's something that their leader wants or the organization needs, like they can move a mountain.
Totally. They are so good at bringing people alongside with a side of an idea or a dream or, a vision that often there's incredible leadership there.
Absolutely. And working with teams the way I do, something that I recognize is that among the leadership team, the
Mhm.
peer group who report to the CEO typically, or even, the manager level
Yep.
next in line, that they are very passionate about their functional area. Very often they were the subject matter expert of that functional area at some point in their career. And now they're responsible for people. And sometimes there's that like confusion about the fact that you're responsible for people. Priority one is not really what they thought they signed up for. So could you talk to us about that transition from going from individual contributor to manager, and like what are some of the pitfalls?
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. Part of the problem, I think, is that we wait until somebody becomes a manager before we acknowledge that it's a totally different skill set. And so one of the benefits of we have to break the cycle somewhere. It becomes this little closed loop system, and we enter the world of management having worked for someone who never got any training, who never, and so then we sort of just model what they did. Uh,
Yes.
so we need to break the cycle. And part of the reason why it's so important to invest in our managers is because when they develop the right skills, they are automatically building that skill into the layers below them,
Mm-hmm.
because they're having those conversations all the time. And so then we're building some skill for the future managers,
Mm-hmm.
future
Mm-hmm.
of the company. So I think lots of times we move managers into these roles because they're great contributors, right?
Yeah,
They're great designers or great engineers. And so we move them into the manager of those positions, but we don't talk about the fact that it's a totally different skill.
totally. Yeah.
And we don't train them often.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
the number is about 58% of managers don't get any training at all.
Whoa.
It's huge. And yet they're so important to
Yeah.
our life. So then they get into this job, and they're left with, well, doing what they know.
Yeah.
So oftentimes they revert back to this technical skill, just doing the thing that always worked when I was an individual contributor. And they take on all these tasks, and they're doing the reports, or they're doing the designing, or they're doing the social media posting, when in fact somebody else could be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And they are there to sort of care for the team and help move the team to a larger destination, right? But they don't have the time to do it because they're doing all the task work, because that's the only thing they know how to do. So it becomes, and then their people learn that, right? And it becomes this, self-perpetuating problem.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. And you think about that the, many managers struggle with delegation. And I think that what you're talking about answers that question, which is, if they've never really invested in their own management skills, that includes how to delegate,
Yeah.
then the chances are they're going to keep those tasks. And that is not the best use of their time, or really the definition of their role.
Yeah.
So that, I think you're really touching on something that is going to help unlock some things for people. It's like, perhaps you've just never been trained. And if so few people have even, benefited from training, then this is a huge opportunity.
And I think the problem is when we're insecure about our role, when we're not sure what it is, or if we're any good at it, or if when we lack that sort of foundation of competence and confidence, we bring all sorts of yuck.
Yes.
Right? Then we are inclined to hang on to tasks because we feel like we need to prove ourselves, or I need to show something for my day. I can't just having, right? And so we keep things that we should be giving away. We speak when we should be listening, because underneath it all, we're like not really sure what we're supposed to be doing. So if we can build competence and confidence in our managers, then they can bring a spirit of leadership, the attitude, the mentality of, this isn't about me. This is about something bigger than me. But if they don't have the skills, then all those insecurities are going to always be at play.
Yes. And because, like you said earlier, everybody wants to make a difference. So if you're not sure that the way you're intended to make a difference in this role is to lead people, then you're going to keep trying to make a difference in your technical craft. And that's not the goal, and then it actually, harms everybody, because then the vision doesn't actually get pulled through. The employees don't get to thrive and shine and be empowered. So I hope everybody listens to this, because I really want them to understand because to me, it sounds like you've gotten to the root cause of a problem in a lot of organizations, which is the lack of training and the competence and confidence of the management level.
Right.
So key. So something that you talk about often is the balanced manager. And you have these 3 pieces or categories of skill. Could you share that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So my fundamental view of the world of the manager is that we need a foundation of skill, management skill. Often liken it to my kids playing the piano. My kids play the piano, they hate it. They hate their practicing, but that's okay. I make them do it anyway. And the thing is, there's an order of operations, right? So before my kids can play beautiful music, first they have to see the little black dots on the page and figure out what notes on the piano correspond to those little black dots. And they got to do some, pattern work, figure out which fingers where, when do I play together, when do I play separate, crossover, and so on. And then repetition turns it into a habit. Only then, once they've got that habit instilled, can they layer on their extraordinary personalities, their style, all the beauty. And that's the stuff that will take those little black dots on a page and turn it into something that moves me to tears.
Yeah.
And I see management skill and leadership as being the same thing. We have to there's an order of operations here. We have to build skill. Then we can bring our personality and our style. We can relax into the role and be much more others centered than if we're not, we're still struggling to find where's the right note I'm supposed to play. So that's the preamble. Map, move, and measure. Let's talk about those. I talk about balanced managers because in reflecting back over my years.
Uh-oh, looks like we might be frozen. Okay, Laura, are you back?
I'm back.
Okay, yes. Okay, great. Okay. Thank you.
I think our managers are exceptional when they're generalists. When management skill, unlike individual contributor skill, requires breadth of skill more than depth of skill. You have to have some technical knowledge for sure. But as you move into the management role, we need generalists. So I look for balance across 3 categories of skills: map, move, and measure. So mapping out a plan. There's a whole set of tools under there that we can work on. This is all about creating clear expectations, setting really good goals. Could be planning for great meetings. It could be creating budgets. Those are all map planning type skills. Once we have a plan, we have to do the things that are going to move people toward it. So move skills are things like powerful one-on-one meetings, delivering feedback, effective communication, really good weekly tactical staff meetings. Those are the things that move our teams toward the plan that we've already outlined. And when the plan is done well, it's connected all the way through the organization, cascaded up and down, right? And then measure skills are things that help us understand the gap between where we want to be and where we are. So think KPIs, weekly metrics, performance reviews, financial statements. Now, that's my accounting background speaking. A lot of managers I work with over the years don't understand their own financial statements. And not every role requires that. So we have to always keep that in context. But this could also be accountability conversations, right? How to have a good accountability conversation. So when I work with managers, I train around, right? So we do a map skill. We pick the skill. We define what good looks like. Then we do the thing and we measure back against what we defined. And we repeat it. So we build the habits. Then the next month we pick a move skill. Maybe it's a powerful one-on-one meeting. We define what good looks like. We do the thing and then we reflect back. Did we do it in a way we intended to do it? And we do a measure skill. So rather than going really deep and spending a lot of time figuring out how to plan, let's just pick one skill in this area and practice it.
Yeah.
And then let's pick one skill here and practice it. And once we've got the skill and the habits installed, pick another one. And then we start to see how they fit together, because we do need all 3. Yeah. So by focusing on skill and building skill, my philosophy, what I've seen is that this then frees up managers. They now know they're doing the right things.
Mm-hmm.
It frees them up to do those things well and be a little more workplaces, have the more, conversations that are a little less work oriented and a little more personal and health oriented, right? All these other things that they can layer on for their employees. But we have to be good about the skills we're using first.
Absolutely. So what would you say is an attribute of some of the managers that you work with who really thrive in this model and with your coaching?
A couple things that I see. First of all, it works best if those managers already know how much they matter.
Mm.
So one of the problems, I'm going to slide this out now. One of the problems I see with managers face is they don't know how much they matter. They haven't realized that their impact is really, really significant. In fact, Gallup recently released a book called It's the Manager, and it talks about how their research, there's a new great global dream emerging, and that dream is simply to have a great job. And they go so far as to say there's only one lever you need to pull because of the new dream, and it's the manager. The manager is the key to people having a great job.
Wow.
So I don't think enough managers appreciate that about their role. And honestly, like, the world is full of people saying it's bad to be a manager. Don't be a manager, be a leader. I hate either ors. Can we be both?
Yes, please.
Let's be
right.
both.
And it's being both. So it's being both that really makes the difference. So you're saying a big part of the solution here is that managers identify with their value.
Yes. I start and end every conversation when I work with managers about that truth. With that truth, you matter. This is how much you matter. Don't forget about your ripple effect. Don't forget, these people are going to come and go from your lives, and they're going to go home to their family dinner tables. What's the conversation at their family dinner table? How are they going to look back on their season with you as a manager? Are you going to be the one that taught them, I never want to be the person that sends someone home to kick their dog?
Yeah.
Or are you going to be the one that taught them that work can be this abundant adventure, that we can find purpose, we can grow, we can explore what's possible within the context of our workplace. So how do you want to be looked back on? So I spend a lot of time having that conversation, because when managers when they realize how much they matter, they learn differently. They invest in their own impact. And if we want a shot in the corporate world of seeing the great global dream become a reality, we need our managers to invest in their impact.
Great. Oh, wow. And then it's not just a stepping stone. Do you find that too, that sometimes for people, they're like, well, I'm going to take this role just so that I can get a promotion, or I just need to have people leadership responsibility so that I'm eligible for this other thing? Like, does it sometimes seem like people aren't satisfied with the manager level, even though it's such a critical component to a culture?
Yeah, I think so. It depends on the person. We all have different ambitions and dreams, but I think part of the problem is that the world doesn't talk very kindly about managers. Honestly, the world doesn't even really want us to use the word. I get that all the time. Why can you say leader instead of manager? And I'm like, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it because it is my personal mission to redeem the perception of management and managers.
Yes.
So, the world has kind of been piling on this concept of management and managers recently. So it's easy to think this is a small thing and it's just a means to another end. And it is. That can be true. And we can still be exceptional and deliver abundant workplaces while we're on our way to that other end. I sort of want managers to think about doing great work, performing, getting results for their businesses, and their ripple effect.
Absolutely. And how would you manage and speak to an individual or even a group of people who are being invited into a management role? Like, I work with a lot of engineers, and they have this challenge where they're like, but I don't want to manage people. I like the technical job. I like to have my sleeves rolled up and I'm in it with everybody. I don't really want to have to deal with performance reviews, and they don't see the benefit of it. So how would you respond to something like that?
I think oftentimes we managers tackle a tool, say the performance review, because somebody has told them that they should. I see this a lot with one-on-one meetings too. Somebody along the way has said, well, you should have one-on-one meetings with your staff. So they go, okay, I'll have a one-on-one meeting. But they don't really know why they're doing it. And they don't know what outcome they're after. Like what would good look like if I do this well? And so if we can't, transfer to our managers, here's the performance review. Here's why we're doing it. Here's why this matters. And here's what good looks like. Then it does just become a make work project. And we're like, I don't want to do that thing that nobody does. I don't want to do them either. I don't want to just sit and tick a bunch of boxes. But do I set someone up for incredible success in their workplace? Do I want to be the kind of manager that's left that fingerprint? That I want. So if there's a performance review function that is getting me to that end, I'm much more likely to be engaged with it. So we can't just tell our managers do this thing. We have to help them understand what it's for, especially in the context of how they want to show up in the world. So I often will start conversations with managers around what do you want to be known for? Like, what's your thing?
Sure.
And what are you known for?
Yeah. What are you known for now? And what do you want to be known for? And is there a gap? What do you need to do? And I think what you're saying about, if we just go straight into the move piece, which is do a performance review or have a one-on-one, but we didn't connect it to the map, which is the plan, the purpose, the strategy. Like, here's where we're going. This is one of the pieces of the puzzle that you are going to work on to build that habit. I love what you were saying about the playing piano, from like really having to be in your mind, and just like that cognitive connection between these keys make this sound. And, it's just so, it's almost so difficult at first, but then you're saying at some point you just sit down and you just play and it pours out of you because you were disciplined enough to stick to that repetition.
Right. We took the time to build the specific skill. And then we don't have to think about that anymore. And it's true in sports, it's true in music, it's true, my kids are young, so my references are like learning to read, your times tables, right? My son, when he was in grade 3, we like pounded his times tables into him because we felt that was a foundational skill. Well, now he's in grade 6, he doesn't have to think about 3 times 6 when he's doing a larger, right? That part's just automatic. He's free to think about the implications of the problem or the things that are a little more challenging. So it's true, and it's a life principle, in my opinion. The miss for us in the management world has been recognizing that it's its own skill. The time to build it early on in our manager's career if we really want to thrive.
It's not inevitable. It's not just you change roles and voila, you know how to do this.
No.
You change roles, and I would say you probably recommend that people learn these skills before they assume the role, right? Ideally.
Better.
Right? In this case scenario, if you're up for a promotion, so that we're not creating that workplace poverty. I think that term that you shared with us early on is something for us to consider, is what are we doing that might be contributing to some of our workplace poverty, and how will we be the person who's taking responsibility for creating the workplace abundance, and like what are some of the habits that I would need to build. in order to do that. So on that practical level, I mean, you shared your map with us, the map, the move, and the measure. I love that. What would be an example of something that we could practice? Because I'm assuming that there are people listening that are like, oh no, what if there's a big gap between how I see myself and how other people see me? Or even those who are saying, gosh, I never realized what a responsibility I have to other people. How can I do this better? I mean, what are some practical things you could teach us?
So first of all, I want to just mention the concept of deliberate practice. This is an Anders Ericsson phrase, but Malcolm Gladwell, most of us heard it from Malcolm Gladwell. And this is the concept of deciding the thing we want to get better at, setting a goal to improve, and then doing the thing and getting the feedback, right? This is how we get exceptional at things. It's harder to see as knowledge workers. As a manager, you're a knowledge worker. Whatever you were doing before, once you became a manager, you became a knowledge worker. So it's a little harder to figure out, how do we practice as knowledge workers? So this is what it looks like. You pick one skill, and you could DIY this, make your own chart, map, move, measure at the top, and just go read, go browse the web, go to your favorite sources and look at some of the things they're talking about that managers should do and put them in a column. It almost doesn't matter, which ones you put where. I mean, it does, because we need them to connect overall, but put them in a column and then decide for yourself which ones, I really am not doing a very good job at that. My weekly staff meetings nobody wants to be there. They're trying to get out of the room as quickly as they can.
Right.
They go on for 2 hours. I'm all over the place. So pick that one.
Yeah.
And then go out there and research on that one. And for a month, if your meetings are weekly, that gives you a rhythm of 4. Define what good looks like. So a great weekly tactical staff meeting, it's going to start and end on time. I didn't cancel it. Right.
Yeah, right.
I did the thing.
I scheduled it before, 5 minutes prior. Right. Yeah.
Just show up. You get points for that. And we talked about progress. So we talked about, did we make progress last week? You covered, your to-do items that came out of last week's meeting. You created new to-dos for next week's. So what you can set your own bar. The information is out there. The point is to set it. Yeah. And then for the next month, do those meetings and then tick, 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 right? It could be, I have one little assessment I use. It's just a yes, no on 7 different things for a weekly tactical meeting. And at the end, tick yes. How many times did you tick yes? 4 out of 7. All right, good. Which 3 did you miss? Next week, see if you can start and end on time, whatever the thing is. It doesn't take more than 5 minutes. We're doing it wrong. We just have to be intentional about taking a little bit of time to reflect back. Did we do the thing in the way we set out to do it? And before long, that weekly meeting will become highly effective. And if the weekly meeting is highly effective and the conversation about goals and where we're headed is sort of invading all your conversations, and that's becoming a highly effective conversation, our weekly staff meetings are now highly effective, and our weekly metrics are telling us something every single week. And then my monthly one-on-one meetings have become highly effective. We're performing like you know it just by working on that one skill for a month, the next one for a month. We can't work on everything all at once.
Yes.
And we can't get better if we haven't decided what good looks like. So you can totally DIY this as a manager. That's all it takes. Just pinpoint what it is you're going to work on. Yeah. Define what it looks like and work on it, and pinpoint the next thing.
Absolutely awesome. And I know you have a 90-day program. Like in that 90-day program, do you have people commit to something each month? Like how do you leverage that 90-day time period? I think a 90-day time period is a really useful period of time to change habits and to start to reinvent parts of the way in which you operate at work and in life. But yeah, so like how would you, people can learn more about that in the follow-up notes that I'm sending everyone, but also, how would you use that 90-day time period if you're DIYing it?
Yeah, so I would just So the way I do the 90-day program is very much what I just described for DIYing it. The only difference is you get the opportunity for a little more feedback. You get a sounding board, the debrief, and you don't have to do the front end work of saying, oh, this is what good looks like.
Yes.
So I'm going to give you that.
You get an expert. Yeah.
Yeah, you can find it. A lot of the times it's not all my own idea. It's my criteria for a powerful one-on-one meeting that comes from Susan Scott's Fierce Conversations. She's got the best model I've seen for having a great one-on-one conversation. So in the 90-day program, we start with one skill. We start with a map skill. Shock, surprise, surprise. And I define, well, this is what good goals look like. Awesome. And I don't use SMART, but you could. This is how you know you've articulated a good goal. And then I push people to drill that down and get really specific about what the milestones are. And then, so the first, we do 2 sessions a month. The first one is always, here's the tool, here's why we use it. And always sandwiched between, here's why you matter, here's why you matter, here's what you want to be known for, here's how this helps you be that person. So we cover a tool, we talk about what good looks like. Then they go away and they use the tool for 2 weeks. And then we do a deep session 2 weeks later. What did you learn? What was hard? What was easy? And I also incorporate a little bit of conversation around strengths. How are you wired? Because how we're wired impacts our ability to, some of us are just wired for planning more so than others. And you need to be aware of that. So the 90-day program includes a little bit of that. And then the second month, we do a move skill. And the third month, we do a map. And so it gives managers the opportunity to experience what deliberate practice looks like. And then in theory, off you go. You can continue that rhythm.
So great, Laura. And what I love about that too is it's bite size, it's 90 days, it's got the accountability, the coaching, the tools, and you could do it yourself, but many people won't, and that's why I think a lot of times people aren't making changes because they think it's so huge, or maybe they don't even know that it's necessary. So I think, you make the case for why it's necessary, and then you really do coach and support them through it. Yeah.
I think the other part that is helpful is a lot of times managers don't get to learn these things in the context of their environment. So, working with 2 managers right now, one has a really, really bureaucratic culture, and a unionized staff team who are very there's a right way to do this, and so how she implements her tools is going to be a little bit different than another manager whose culture is it's a family culture, it's a smaller business, people are very gracious, people, small rural community, they see each other at the bank and the grocery store. It's just a different context. And so the opportunity to talk through, how do I make change in my own management habits in the context of my environment, is also something that doing it in community helps with. You can do DIY it for sure. Sometimes we benefit from community because we get more perspectives. And
absolutely. And I think the accountability is important too, because many of us have very good intentions, but unless we're being held accountable, it's like, I was meant to do that in 2017, 2018, 2019. We're just I'm doing an okay job. And chances are, if you're thinking you're doing an okay job, you're probably not, if you haven't invested any time and energy in learning these skills. So some of the top skills I've heard you say is about having the one-on-one and having those candid feedback type of conversations. Would you say that's one of the most critical skills, or what did you say? What would you say the top skills?
Yeah, the powerful one-on-one is one of my favorites. I don't actually cover that first. We cover setting really clear goals, having really good staff meetings, and having a weekly leading indicator first, because that's sort of the base infrastructure. The powerful one-on-one is one of my favorite tools because I think it's the one that creates the most trust. We all know that trust is really foundational to delivering a great workplace experience. And to being able to influence. Trust is the platform for influence as managers. If we don't have that, our influence is going to be always limited. So the one-on-one meeting I see as the best tool for fostering that sense of trust and openness, and that, that sense of, I'm in your corner as your manager. I am in your corner. I'm here to see good things happen for you. And if we do the one-on-one meetings right, even if our heart's not quite there, because we're not always there with every employee, right? Some relationships are harder than others. If we can park that and show up and do the thing to a specific set of criteria, then it doesn't matter if our heart's not quite in it. We can fake it till we make it, or we can still do a good service for that employee, even if we're not 100% there from a heart perspective. So I put a lot on the one-on-one. Even though I don't cover it in the first 90 days, I put a lot of emphasis there, because doing it well, I just see managers get so much benefit when they invest in their people that way.
Absolutely. And just some quick do's and don'ts on that. What would you say are some things we should definitely not do? like don't have your heart outside the door, right? Bring your heart in there. I'm hearing you say, like, what are do's and don'ts for effective one-on-ones? Because I think these are really practical things and contributions that we could make to our team.
So on the do list, on some of the criteria, talk as little as possible. Honestly, that's the one most managers struggle with most, because we, especially if we're a little insecure in our own skill set, we want to show that we know stuff. So talk as little as possible. I will sometimes challenge managers if they're struggling with that. Today, I want you to go through your one-on-one meeting. You are only allowed to ask questions.
Yeah, that's it.
Right? That's it. See if you can get through the whole hour only asking questions. It's not possible to do, but it's a fun exercise to realize. Makes them aware of what's coming out of their mouth. Another good one is don't take the problem. So a lot of times employees will show up and they'll be like, well, I'm having this problem with Sarah down the hall. Could you just talk to Sarah's manager and tell Sarah what I need, and then come back and let me know? Right? Since they don't want to have the awkward conversation. And so it's really hard for managers to not take the problem, because usually it's well-intentioned. It's like, help. Well, I can do that. I'm way more comfortable a communicator than that person, so I'll do that for them. But every time we take the problem, we deny them something that is really important to workplace satisfaction, which is
true. So true.
Yeah. So don't take the problem. Don't run out of time. So that means you should always be closing with, what is that person doing as a result of the conversation? And usually, if it's been a good one-on-one, the stuff your employees walking away with on their to-do list are kind of uncomfortable. It's like, having the conversation with Sarah down the hall, I don't really want to do that, but I gotta step up and do the uncomfortable thing. If they're leaving with little tasks and checklist items, then you haven't gotten beneath the surface. And this is not the one-on-one meeting isn't a task meeting. It's a going deeper. What's really preventing you from moving forward? What's really infringing on your sense of satisfaction at work, or where are you really struggling? Where are you stuck? Right.
These are great things. Like that, have them be present and don't do all the talking. Don't take the problem. Don't make it too comfortable, because you're giving them a chance to grow.
Yeah. That's the point.
So what would you say if you were going to generalize this, take us up now a little higher and say, what are the two things that you think every manager must have?
Are you talking about skills or beliefs?
No, the two things that I often hear you talk about that managers need the most. Like the one you're talking about right now, which is to build these skills, build the management skills.
Right. So the two biggest problems I think our corporate world faces with managers, number one is they don't know how to get where they want to go. They don't actually know how to get better, because there's so much noise out there. There's so many choices, and we just need to put a little order to that, and then we can chip away at it. So the first thing we need is to be intentional about building skill as managers. And And the second problem that I see facing the management level in the corporate world is not knowing how much they matter, and understanding the significance of the role, the significance of their impact, and that as a manager, you hold the great global dream in your hands. The rest of us are counting on you. We want work in a place of abundance, and we need you to help us with that.
Yes. Yeah. I think that appreciation is on all levels. So you're teaching them how to value themselves and to recognize that the role they play is so essential. And I also think that the senior leadership needs to understand the important role that the managers play, because they're in the trenches. They're the people that are really, they're closest to the customer. They're closest to the output, right? They're closest to the, the subject matter experts. Yeah. And then I think also the employee base, right? The individuals who are reporting into these managers also need to have a new appreciation, if they don't already, for what role these people play.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And sometimes the work I do with managers extends to their employees to help the employees understand what is the role of a manager, because sometimes the expectations are, my manager should be doing the thing. My manager should be doing some of these reports. My manager should be, and actually they shouldn't be doing a lot of that task work. They should be. My rule around delegation is very simple. When in doubt, delegate. Stop. If you're not sure, delegate.
If you're doing this because you love it, what about that one?
You need to learn to love the management tool. But it's true. Like you're hit the nail right on the head. My worst days as a manager is when I was managing an accounting department, because it was where my strength was. And if I didn't want to talk to the guy down the hall, I didn't have to. I just do it myself.
Yeah.
That's not giving people the dream, right? That's not giving them work that matters, and it's not giving them a chance to grow.
Yes.
So you're right.
Words to live by. And the dream is, like you said, from this study that was just recently done, that people want a
great job. So
great job.
Gallup's question is, they ask people about their best life imaginable. 80 years ago, we answered that question with family, home ownership, a peaceful existence. I just want a peaceful life. But now, over the last 30 years, when they ask that question, people are like, I want a great job, because it leads to so many other things. And they define a great job so simply, it's almost embarrassing: a living wage, work that matters, and a chance to grow. That's it. It's like, we're not after world peace. We're not trying to end, world poverty. It's not physical poverty, right? It's not. It should be easier than this.
Easier than this, yeah. And that's what I so appreciate what you're doing, because I think that you've identified the root cause of a big problem that people suffer from. Like, people suffer deeply from this. And you have found a way to make it tangible. It's not simple, but it's accessible. It's right. And it's encouraging, because you say, let's just focus on one thing, put it through the cycle, right? Focus on another thing. And it's so, I think, motivating to know that these things that seem kind of little aren't little, because they add up and they create this whole thing, which actually gives people what they really want.
Yes.
Is work that they care about and work that matters.
Totally. Yeah. A great experience at work. It doesn't need to be, I think we overthink it a lot of times as managers. There are a lot of resources to draw on, and that's a good thing. That's why it's so easy to DIY your growth in skill, right? If you can pinpoint what it is you want to get better at, you can find a book written on the subject. Yeah. You can probably find 10 books written on the subject. One at a time. Right?
Yeah. And that new book that you just talked about called Managers, or
it's The Manager by Gallup.
By Gallup. Okay. Yeah. That's to look that up. and to look you up. So your organization is called Carry the Three. Let's close with a explanation of what that means.
So Carry the Three was birthed, the name was birthed from the realization that people were asking me to help them with three things. So I also do some consulting work with different CEOs in my work world. And I didn't necessarily choose consulting. It kind of got chosen for me. So I got the kick, right, out of the corporate world. So I landed in consulting, and I was like, now what? But people kept asking me to come and help them with things, and they were asking me for help in three things. They were asking for help with their strategies. They were asking me for help with their teams, getting their teams working better toward that strategy, and with their financial results, or how to measure. So the more I showed up and did those things for different organizations, the more I realized I'm a total generalist. I have some depth in strategy, but I'm not like, hardcore strategy person. I have some depth in helping teams move forward, but I'm not, Patrick Lencioni, or, I'm not a guru. And then I have some depth in certainly financial, but how to measure. And the more I reflected on that, the more I realized, well, that's what exceptional management is. It's the combination of those three things. So when I do my consulting work, I think of myself as carrying projects alongside CEOs and their teams. So that's why the word carry. I get in and I get my hands dirty, and we work on it together. But that's why the three.
That's fantastic, Laura. Thank you for taking time to share with us, giving us some tactical, tangible things that we could practice, and then that understanding of how those three pieces of the map it out, move, and measure can keep us in a momentum of practice, so that we can just start to play some really elegant, beautiful music. And then the way you were describing that with your children is once you start to play, then you can express yourself and personalize the thing.
It becomes joyful.
Yeah, it's joyful.
It becomes joyful, and music is a literal form of art. But when we've got skill at the foundation, leadership is also a form of art, because it's very personal. It's very individualized. But we can't get there if we don't have the skill, or if we try and go there without the skill, we're not all that effective, because we're doing the right things. So.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for that. Thanks for everybody for joining us. We will make sure we share some of these nuggets with you in the follow-up notes. And please continue to practice. Take some of the things that Laura shared with us today. Take ownership of at least one, and then go practice.
Because you matter.
That's right. That's great closing thoughts. You matter and make a difference. Yes. All right. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Shannon. It was a pleasure.